discount talking or liquors. You can tell to be quiet.
Pardon? Oh, he's out there. No, it's us. Yeah. No, there's three of us. Is there not? No. Tina, Sufi, and Kathy. Tina, are you? Yeah.
All right. Are the judges all ready?
Yes.
Debaters all ready? Yes. Fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I now will introduce the debaters to you. On proposition, we have first speaker Shervin and second speaker Bernadette. On the opposition side, we have first speaker Yesha and second speaker Emily. I now call upon Shervin to deliver his constructive speech.
The Olympics have lost their complete and utter value. It's no longer about athletics and cultural unison. It's no longer about uniting the world in a show of sport and dominance. It's totally lost its meaning. As the first proposition speaker, I would like to define and interpret the resolution this House would cancel the Olympics, mean that we would cancel the Summer and Winter Olympiads, basically. Now, in my constructive matter, I'll be discussing two prioritized contentions. The first point being that Olympics are not currently necessary, and the second point being that the athletics have been manipulated and the point of athletics have been lost. And today, as side proposition, we'll be focusing on three prioritized pillars: economics, social problems, and political problems. So now I'd like to get on to my first point. The Olympics are not currently necessary. The significance is no longer there. See, when the Olympics were revamped in the early 20th century, we saw that it was more about cultural unison, it was more about showing national dominance, showing dominance on an international scale for the first time in the new world. But now, in the 21st century, we see that this kind of event, this multi-platform event, is not that fundamental anymore. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's not about athletics. It's become a capitalist sort of playground that doesn't benefit locals. It doesn't necessarily benefit cultures in general. What it does is show national dominance for a brief period of time and leave the locals wondering, what was the point of this event in the first place, up to even 30 years after? So what we're not seeing anymore is some kind of equality. We're not seeing some kind of representation and fair representation. We are seeing dominance. So the Olympics are now a symbol of oppression we put on the rest of the world. Let's think about, Vancouver, when they hosted the Olympics in 2010. Now, although at first the site of the bid was seen as a great benefit to our city, it could be a great thing for Canada in general, hosting a third Olympic game. But eventually, we saw a very big problem with the locals. Now, during the Olympics, during major construction between Burrard and Granville, we saw huge halts for the benefit of traffic compensation during the Olympics. So for the next 4 years, what did we have to face? Well, local businesses went through some of their worst economic downfalls in years. Local businesses had almost been barred up, as according to the construction, and had lost a ton of wages and capital. Now, even after the Olympics, representations of these companies had been able to file a lawsuit, which they eventually lost. You see, when it comes down to local and cultural heritage, we've lost it. The only thing that was really a part of our cultural heritage in the Vancouver Olympics was possibly the dummies, and even just the symbols and the inukshuk on our lake. We did not cherish the native cause within Stanley Park, within the Vancouver region. We did not cherish the local businesses and instead focused on capitalist ideals. What is a major company that's been involved in the Olympics since mid-20th century? Who else but Coca-Cola? What has Coca-Cola been doing at every single Olympics? Trying to parade their national identities of each individual nation through labeling, through marketing, and that is in no way a cultural benefit, and that is why we don't see it as necessary. That is why we see it as capitalist. Would you not agree?
Absolutely not. You keep on talking about how local businesses were affected, but do you not agree that during the Olympics, their businesses had much more capital, that they enjoyed much better resources?
We're going with the kind of thing, well, you can dig a hole and maybe later we can fill it up. That's not the logic we're trying to go for. During the Olympics, they lost a ton of money, and that wasn't even compensated for. Why? If it went as the way you're defining, then the lawsuits wouldn't be going on between gaining lost compensation. It wouldn't be like that, so that point completely falls. So now I'd like to slowly segue into my second point, at the significance of athletics within the Olympics. Now, we don't necessarily need to operate on a multi-platform game. Other sports have their own international events, and that's been going great. The opportunity is greater for individual sports. The need is greater for individual sports, and more focus can be put onto specifically athletics. Then we can see that the cultural significance is no longer valid for multi-platform games, and that the sports significance has fallen down over the years. Many major sports that we would presume would be culturified and exemplified during the Olympics are not even included. Soccer, golf, rugby, many major sports that have an international favorite. Yes?
Would you not agree that the Olympics provides a venue for alternate sports to play where they otherwise would not be played?
Alternate sports. Well, when you say about that, well, the most alternative sports we see are, we don't really see it as more specific for national quality. If they are alternative sports, they do have their own segue, they do have their own real intentions to be out on an international scale, and then many alternate sports do have their own international events. For example, rugby does have their own international event. In the western part of the world, of course, rugby may not be considered that great of a sport, but the fact is, in your definition, that could be considered an alternative sport, so that point also falls. So next we talk about how if separate international sports events do a better job for competition, do a better job of having more people involved for the same sake of sports, we can see that we don't have to suffer through the cost of both the money and the cultural losses through Olympics. We can also see that there's a better effect on the athletes, and that is what is one of the most important groups involved. We can also see that through focusing on athletics, focusing on individual sports on an international scale, we can see greater benefit. There's betterment within that exact sport and longer time to focus and improve on that exact sport. So what have we really told you today here on Side Proposition? Well, we tried to prove to you in our first constructive matter that there is no valid significance for the Olympic Games anymore because of the capitalist playground that has become. And secondly, we talked about how athletics can operate better on smaller international scales instead of huge problems. Now my partner, Bernadette, will be expanding on these points as well as talking about greater cultural and local significance. But for now, we strongly beg to propose.
I now call upon the first opposition, Nisha.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Olympics are the most watched, most widely recognized, greatest events of sports of all time. What we see today is that the Olympics truly represent the spirit of the sport. They represent what the wants of the people. And this is something that the opposition has been completely misconstrued. So today, before going into some constructive matter, I'm going to first rebut what the proposition has been talking about. So, the first proposition, his main point really, was that the locals are affected and we don't really like that, and that sports have their own competition, so the Olympics isn't necessary. Now, there are many fundamental problems with what he's saying. So let's first examine his first point, which is that the Olympics aren't necessary because it's harming local businesses. His summing of my POI was that you can dig a hole, then fill it later. Ladies and gentlemen, what is wrong with that? What we see is that the benefits that these businesses get during the Olympics shows that some sacrifices have to be made, but ultimately the Olympics, the whole experience, having the people there, having the businesses come back together is far more important than losing some business in the short term. Wouldn't you agree?
Not at all. But why would sacrifices have to be made by the businesses who in the end don't get benefit at all, don't even get recognized by their own city in a good way?
Of course they get benefited. They get the publicity, they get the people going in there during the sports. It's a great tourist event. Tons of people go out to the streets. If you saw downtown during the Olympics, you would be stunned. Just a huge sea of individuals. And what we would say is that these sacrifices have to be made because the Olympics are a great sporting event. And this is something that I'm going to be really going into in my constructive manner. Now, secondly, he talked how sports have their own competitions, and hence the Olympics is not necessary. he is completely missing what the Olympics are. The Olympics are an agglomeration of some of the greatest sports in existence, and it has the widest audience views of all time. It has, for example, the Beijing Olympics had over 250 million people watching on television. This is the sort of publicity you would not see in any other sporting event. This is a collection of some of the most talented athletes in the world, the greatest athletes to be in the sport, all coming together, meeting together to participate in their sport. Shervin is not understanding the spirit of the Olympics, the fact that competitions coming together, going together, all being presented at the same time, present to the audience a great agglomeration, a great collage of what sport is all about. So now I'm going to move into my points. No, thank you. Today, I'm going to be addressing the benefits to the nation itself that is hosting the Olympics, while my partner will be talking about the benefit to the international community. So within the benefits to the country, I have three major points. The raising of national morale and pride, the ability for the nation to showcase what it is really about, and the venues and sports facilities that continue to help generations to come. So first off is the national morale and pride. People become proud of their nation's accomplishments. People root for their country, and this has been clearly seen in Vancouver itself. Support for the Olympics was, in the beginning, rather low. It was around 50-50 because people were unwilling to pay for it, like Shervin was. But when the Olympics happened, when people saw how great it was, how the national spirit rose, how Canada was truly succeeding in the international stage, support for the Olympics rose dramatically. It went to over 80%. Everybody on the streets was cheering. You saw flags, you saw face painting, you saw signs everywhere for people showing support for the Olympics. It truly raised national morale. In fact, the international community was stunned that Canada finally decided to say, "Go Canada!" They finally decided to show their national pride. And this is something the opposition completely has ignored. Then we see that the nation gets to showcase itself. The nation gets to just demonstrate its culture, its advancement, its economic development. It places the nation on a higher standing in the international community. It shows that the nation is ready to accept the world, to let the world in, see what it is all about, and demonstrate that it can run such a great international event. For example, a lot of Asian countries like South Korea, like China today, are using the Olympics to demonstrate their prosperity and growth and their new status as developed nations. You saw this in Beijing, where basically what China did was spend a lot of money creating what the Olympic Committee called the greatest Olympics ever, to prove that it is ready to stand on the international stage as a developed nation, as a powerful nation. Yes, sir.
Well, Geisha, didn't we also see in China that the government really tried to set up as a showcase of how they can be free, even though during that time there were many staged protests on the news?
Absolutely not, Shervin. I think that you're missing the point of the Olympics. China still has certain issues with its government itself, but what it's proving is that it can let in the outside, it can invite the international community, it has the growth, it has the potential to run these international events and run them well. And this is something that you haven't seen. So we've seen that the nation can boost morale, boost pride, and showcase itself. And finally, we come to the last idea, which is that the national venues and sports facilities that have been built continue to serve the community for many generations past, not destroy local businesses. What we have seen is that sports facilities, such as the one in Montreal for the 1976 Olympics, have continued to serve as tourist attractions, bringing in thousands of people every single day to their venues. We have seen world-quality training being available for these new athletes because of the world-class facilities that are in Olympic stadiums. We have seen athletes' villages being used for subsidized homes for the poor in Vancouver and for new apartments and living places in other areas. So what we see is that the Olympics truly does represent the spirit, and it truly does help the nation in many, many ways. And this for this reason that we are proud to oppose.